I was 5 minutes into a client pitch when the cleaning guy rolled Greg's standing desk out of the elevator like a war trophy. Not a word. Just wheeled it past me in HR, turned sharply, and parked it beside the receptionist like a damn art installation. Still had Greg's crusty stress ball wedged in the keyboard tray. The client blinked. I blinked harder. "Excuse me," I muttered, muting Zoom. I walked straight out of the glass conference room barefoot, nails in hand, because whatever the hell this was, it wasn't in the meeting notes. Then I saw it. A sign taped to the monitor. "Remote is over. Get back to your cubicles." Greg underlined 3 times with a dried coffee ring stamped in the corner like his royal seal. I didn't even make it back to my seat before my phone buzzed. First Melanie, then Ethan, then 2 more engineers. Same message, same tone, all variants of, "He locked us out of Slack." VPN access gone. Systems redirecting. What the hell is happening? It was coordinated, like a firing squad, but for morale. And Greg, the man himself, was nowhere. No town hall, no explanation. Just a fresh tan from whatever executive leadership summit he'd rotted through last week in Scottsdale, and now this power play straight from 1986. I stormed toward his office, but legal had already posted a gatekeeper. Lindsay. Lipstick too perfect, spine too straight. She trained in a cult. "He's not taking visitors," she chirped without looking up. "Tell him I'm not a visitor," I snapped. "I'm his East Coast head of client strategy." She smiled without her eyes. Not anymore, apparently. I froze. "Excuse me?" She tapped a stack of sealed envelopes on her desk. "Voluntary office return is mandatory. Those who don't comply," she didn't finish. Just tapped the pile again, slow and deliberate. One of those envelopes had my name. Weren't just cutting remote work. They were cutting us. Silently, surgically. And then, this is where it gets weird, someone left a post-it note inside mine. Different handwriting. Bold ink, no signature. "3 clients already reached out. They'll follow you. Call me, no number, just that." So I walked. Past the Shark Tank. Past Greg's Loach doing circles in algae. Past the startup interns whispering about the bloodletting. I didn't pack my office. Didn't even take my charger. Because by the time I hit the sidewalk, barefoot in July heat, I wasn't angry. I was already building the nameplate for my new door. And Greg? He'd learned soon enough how real employees really sit at the top. The first call came before I reached the crosswalk. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. Assumed it was Greg's assistant trying to lure me back with some miscommunication excuse wrapped in PR syrup. But it wasn't. Man's voice. Calm, clipped. "Miss Rains. Word is you're no longer with Charles and Hunt." I stopped walking. "Who is this? You don't remember me," he said, with a hint of a smile. "But I remember the pitch you gave at the Dreyfus Summit. You turned a broken logistics app into a 7-figure contract in under 6 minutes. My pulse spiked. He wasn't wrong. That pitch had been my Hail Mary last year, and that got Greg off the chopping block when the board threatened to cut his bonuses. The voice continued. "I represent a client who's disillusioned with your former employer. He's one of the 3 whales keeping their Q3 alive." I crossed the street, heel in one hand, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he's about to jump ship. And he wants to know if you're building one." Click. No name, no follow-up. I stood there for a full minute, horns blaring. A guy in a hot dog costume shouted something about jaywalking. I didn't move, I just smiled. I wasn't building a ship yet, but suddenly someone had handed me the blueprints, and a damn good reason to set it on fire once it sailed. I went home, made a pot of coffee strong enough to melt enamel. I opened my laptop, expecting to see Greg's lawyers had locked my access. But guess what? Hadn't touched one thing, the sandbox server where I used to test remote engagement metrics. And buried in there, untouched and forgotten, was something beautiful. Something I'd built after hours and never shipped. A prototype. 1 part CRM, 1 part magic. It used predictive scheduling and adaptive tone recognition to prep account managers for calls, down to the client's caffeine level and favorite phrases. Greg had said it was too soft. Not enough edge. Clients don't need cuddling, he'd barked. They need confidence. Right? Confidence, like dropping a guillotine by memo. I opened the code, it still ran. I checked the integrations. Slack ready, Zoom friendly, remote first. I named it Ghost Desk. Then I called Ethan. "Are you still locked out?" I asked. "Hard, even the admin panel." "What's up? You want in on something?" I asked. "You'll be broke for a week, hated for a month, but if we're right, you'll never set foot in an office again." Silence, then a breath. "I'll bring the dev team." That night we met in my apartment, 2 laptops. Cold low main, Spotify on low. Ethan, Melanie, Diego from QA. We had no plan, no funding, no office, but we had Ghost Desk and 3 angry clients whispering behind Greg's back. By midnight, we had a landing page. By morning, we had a name. By the end of the week, we had a lease. Directly across the street from Charles and Hunt, real employees could watch us rise, one window at a time. By the time Greg figured out where the traffic was bleeding, we'd already stolen the oxygen from his penthouse. It started with little things. His 10 o'clock a.m. with Pinnacle Tech rescheduled indefinitely. The agency brunch with Alara Motors mysteriously canceled. Then came the PR call. His favorite client, Hollister and Vane, ghosted his assistant mid-sentence. 3 weeks ago, was the one who managed all 3 accounts. Personally, they didn't come for the perks or the Christmas baskets. They came for the results and the fact that I knew their CFO's favorite bourbon and their COO's kid's peanut allergy. Greg thought he owned loyalty. Turns out he just leased it through me. At 9:43 a.m. on Monday, the first shot rang out. Figuratively, a sleek white envelope arrived at Charles and Hunt reception. No stamp. Hand-delivered. Inside, a single printed page on Ghost Desk letterhead. Effective immediately, Hollister and Vane has transferred all campaign work to Rains & Co. This is a permanent move. No explanation. No signature. Just a new address and a QR code to our demo portal. Greg lost his shit. He barged into the account bullpen and screamed for someone to explain it. When his voice cracked, someone recorded him. That video, it ended up on Reddit before lunch. CEO meltdown over remote rebellion. Went semi-viral. I may have helped. But here's where it got spicy. Later that afternoon, I get a message. Private encrypted from Lindsay. Yeah, that Lindsay, the lipstick cultist at Greg's front desk. I want in, it said. 3 words, no greeting, no fluff. I didn't answer right away. Because that night, something happened that nearly made me call the whole thing off. I was walking home. Same corner as usual. Same bodega guy waving with his cat in a Yankees jersey. And that's when I saw it. A black Escalade idling at the curb. Tinted windows. Out steps a man in a navy suit. Not Greg. Worse. Victor Alden, the man who bankrolls half the acquisitions in our sector. Silent board member. Venture shark in a tailored vest. I hadn't seen him since he dropped into Greg's office last year to evaluate succession pipelines. I was one of the names mentioned. Greg never forgave me for that. Now here he was, leaning on the hood, arms folded. You've been busy, he said with a tight smile. I didn't answer, just kept walking. He matched my pace. 3 whales, Emily. You took 3 of his whales. That's not entrepreneurship, that's war. I stopped. Then you'd better pick a side. He smiled wider. Already did. That night, I got a call from Diego. You might want to see this, he said, sending a screenshot. Greg had just filed a cease and desist, claiming we stole proprietary data. Thing is, we didn't have to. Because while Greg was busy posting motivational quotes about office synergy, his most valuable resource walked out in sneakers and built the future across the street. And now his investors were calling me. The subpoena landed like a dead pigeon on my doorstep, wings spread, beak open, eyes rolled back in Xeroxed rage. 6:13 a.m. No knock, just an envelope duct taped to my apartment door like a threat from a jealous ex. Inside, legal jargon wrapped around a limp accusation that I'd misappropriated trade secrets and defamed the Charles and Hunt brand through acts of professional sabotage. Cute. Greg really thought he had claws. I sat on my floor, still in pajamas, watching my coffee burn on the stove, while Melanie read it aloud like it was Shakespeare. See this part? She said, pointing to a line that claimed Ghost Desk was substantially similar in concept and architecture to a tool Greg once imagined, but never built. He's suing you for inventing what he didn't. Classic Greg, I muttered. Mad, I opened the jar of pickles he couldn't grip. But I wasn't laughing, because buried at the bottom, buried like a snake in mulch, was a clause demanding immediate shutdown of all Ghost Desk operations pending review. No trial, no hearing, just a slow-choke gag order designed to kill us with delay. We had 12 hours to respond. 12 hours to prove we hadn't built Ghost Desk using any part of Greg's crumbling Frankenstein empire. Except we had used one thing. Me, my brain, my notes. The neural map of every client behavior I'd tracked since the first beta call in 2020. Greg didn't even know half of it existed because he was too busy posing for magazine spreads about thought leadership. I was the thought, he was the haircut. Still, I wasn't about to risk everything on technicalities. So I did the only thing I could. I called Lindsay. She picked up after one ring. So she purred, you got the Greg-ogram. Cut the theater, I snapped. You still want in? Silence. Then, meet me in 30. 9th and Lexington. Look for the woman feeding pigeons in a leopard coat. I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. Lindsay slid onto the bench like she was entering a mob movie. She didn't say hello, just handed me a flash drive shaped like a lipstick. Every internal memo Greg sent about your tool, every meeting note, every time he dismissed it as HR fluff. You'll want slide 19. I plugged it into my laptop right there in the park. Slide 19. Ghost desk proposal, Emily Rains. Notes, not viable, too empathetic. Real leadership doesn't rely on tone analysis. It was dated, signed, time-stamped. Proof that Greg knew about it, proof that I built it, proof that he shelved it and that everything after was mine. I looked up at Lindsay, who was now calmly feeding a pigeon a bit of bagel. Why are you helping me? She didn't blink. Because I know where the bodies are buried, Emily, and I'm tired of planting them. I smiled, small and sharp. Just gave me a shovel. At 6:59 p.m., 1 minute before the shutdown deadline, our lawyer sent the response. Greg's cease and desist died in a puff of digital smoke. And the next morning, a new envelope arrived. This one from Victor Alden's office. It wasn't a threat. It was an offer. Victor's envelope was navy, thick, and smelled faintly of cigars and old money. Inside, a single-page letter handwritten. Victor's script looked like something you'd find on a constitution, impossibly smooth, like the pen feared him. No letterhead, no fluff. Just one sentence. When you're ready to scale, my office is ready to fund. Underneath, a black metal card with nothing but a number and the word private. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from anxiety, adrenaline. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, imagining Greg watching his empire bleed out window by window, while I ordered ergonomic chairs for a team that could actually breathe. By morning, I made a decision. We weren't just going to compete. We were going to replace him. Phase 1, go after the one thing he valued more than clients, his image. C, Greg didn't build Charles and Hunt from the ground up. He bought it from 2 exhausted founders who wanted out. He rebranded it with a bunch of glass walls, corporate influencer posts, and TED Talk quotes he barely understood. He built a myth. And myths crack under light, so I called in a favor from a journalist I once saved from being blacklisted when Greg tried to bury a harassment complaint. Alicia, investigative journalist, burned Greg once before, ready to roast him again. We met at an all-night diner in Queens. She brought her laptop, 3 Red Bulls, a flash drive labeled Project False Prophet. I've got emails, she said, sipping black coffee like it owed her money. Leaked audio, even a spreadsheet showing he inflated Q2 projections to keep investor confidence afloat. All of it time-stamped. You want a green light? I asked. She nodded. Give me the quote, the headline. I'll finish the rest, so I gave her one. He banned remote work because he couldn't control people who weren't afraid of him. Now he can't even control his reflection. She smiled. That'll do. The story dropped 72 hours later. Front page of 3 outlets. Blasted on LinkedIn. Every VC in town saw it before their first espresso shot. My inbox exploded, but Greg imploded. I got a text from Melanie, still had a friend inside. Greg just threw his espresso machine out the 14th floor window. It hit a Tesla. I laughed so hard I dropped my phone. Not because of the Tesla. Because Greg didn't even drink espresso. He just owned the machine for the look. The same afternoon, Ghost Desk signed our 4th major client. Not poached, not stolen, referred. That was the crack in the dam. By end of week, the Charles and Hunt name was trending for all the wrong reasons. Layoffs, revolt. Even a trending TikTok hashtag, #real employees sit down, footage of Greg's memo spliced with people working from beaches, rooftops, hot tubs. Then, on a rainy Thursday, Greg showed up in my lobby. No appointment, no call. Just stood there in a drenched suit, holding a rolled-up magazine with his face on the cover under the headline, From Boardroom to Breakdown. I walked down slowly. Calm. He stared at me like a man who just realized the fire wasn't outside, it was under his own feet. You think this is over, he said, voice low. I smiled, measured. Greg, this isn't the end of your story. It's just the part where I stop being a footnote in it. Greg didn't leave the lobby, not for 37 minutes. He just stood there like a taxidermy CEO, soaked and seething, gripping that wrinkled magazine like it owed him his reputation back. The security guard offered him tea. He declined. Twice. Finally, he walked out, no words, no eye contact. But not before sliding the magazine onto the front desk, face up, headline glaring. The remote revolution has a new address, Ghost Desk. We framed it. That weekend, while While Greg was presumably licking his wounds in some sad airbnb with blackout curtains and an unpaid PR intern, I flew to Miami for private summit. Victor had arranged it. Quiet invite-only deal. No badges, no LinkedIn posts. Just serious money looking for serious disruption. That's where I met the final piece. Her name was Isabelle Liore, former CMO at a Silicon Valley unicorn that died when their founder mistook crypto for strategy. Sharp French accent, sharper mind, and eyes like she could audit your soul. She didn't ask for pitch. She asked for a war plan. What's your weak flank? She said over oysters and $60 wine. You're winning, but Greg will come for your blood. What part of this empire can't you protect? I was honest. Scale. Our platform was brilliant. Our execution was lean. But our infrastructure? Held together with caffeine and hope. We had the clients, the talent, the momentum. But if 5 more whales landed tomorrow, our systems would buckle like wet drywall. She smiled like I passed a test. I'll fix it, she said. You focus on the fire. I'll build the walls. 3 days later, Isabelle was our new COO, quiet hire. No press. Just a Slack ping to the team, meet the firewall. Then came the twist I didn't expect. Eleni called me in the middle of the night. Her voice was shaky. You up? Barely. What's they're planning a merger? Greg's company with a firm called Norvault. I sat up. Norvault, the government contractor? Yeah. Remote surveillance, compliance systems, total paper monster. But it'll keep Charles and Hunt solvent, barely. They're bleeding. Greg thinks this will prove he's still a power broker. My mind raced. That means layoffs. Total pivot. Gut what's left and spin it as innovation. Worse, she said. They're targeting your clients, all of them. They're promising discounts. Poaching managers, saying you're unstable, that you're being investigated for fraud. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was desperate. But also dangerous. Greg was setting the table for one final play. If Norvault signed on, he'd get enough capital to build a knockoff of Ghost Desk. A bloated, valence-heavy monstrosity pretending to be cutting edge. He'd sell fear as control, push it to every outdated firm scared of remote culture, and label us the chaotic idealists. And here's the kicker. One of our oldest clients, Elara Motors, the one who followed me day one, they were in talks with Norvault, the same CFO who toasted me at their last gala, now ghosting my emails. Greg wasn't just playing defense. He was reaching for the matchbook. I had less than 72 hours to make sure the only thing that caught fire was him. Day one, I built Ghost Desk on trust. Now I had to weaponize it. The next morning, I walked into our office like it was a war room. Coffee in one hand, tablet in the other, voice sharp enough to cut drywall. All hands, war mode. Ethan blinked. You mean sprint? No, I said. I mean scorched earth. Melanie was already pulling intel. Elara's C-suite is split, she said. CFO's scared? They're swallowing Norvault's compliance Kool-Aid. But the CMO, she's furious. Apparently Norvault pitched an AI overlay that scrapes internal Slack channels for tone moderation. Called it emotion hygiene. Ethan gagged. Is that even legal? Diego chimed in. Barely. But it doesn't matter. If Greg spins it as corporate wellness, half the boardrooms in America will buy it. I sat down and opened Ghost Desk's admin panel. Let's show them what actual wellness looks like. We had 3 days to build what Greg couldn't. A transparency module, real-time feedback, built-in accountability, no tracking keystrokes, no tone policing, just clean, ethical metrics that actually respected the humans using them. I named it Mirror Mode because when you stood in front of it, there was nowhere to hide. Isabelle pulled in 3 devs from her old firm. Caffeine budgets doubled. I barely slept. The second night, I coded until I hallucinated Greg's voice in the air vents, whispering about synergy and chair posture. Then one last play, we booked a demo for Elara Motors. Secret invite. One person, their CMO, Celia, she showed up late, no entourage. Just a trench coat, sunglasses, and a look like she'd just set something on fire. You have 20 minutes, she said. Impress me. We did it in 12. At minute 8, Ethan pulled up a live Ghost Desk dashboard, showing how our team managed triple workload with 0 burnout and a 94% satisfaction score. At minute 10, we showed her mirror mode. At minute 12, she whispered, "Holy shit," and took off her sunglasses. By minute 13, she was texting her legal team. By minute 15, she told us Norvault had offered a 30% discount and a backdoor into Ghost Desk's client API. API Greg promised them would be his after the merger. She looked me dead in the eye. Tell me you can kill that deal. I leaned forward. No, I can bury it. That night, Ghost Desk pushed a public update. Mirror mode went live, free trial for every client, every tier, every team. Instantly adopted by 24 mid-size firms before Greg could even hit reply all. And then, right as Norvalt's merger paperwork hit inboxes across the city, Isabel dropped the final payload. We'd secured federal certification for ethical remote software. Not just compliance, pre-approval, meaning any government-adjacent firm choosing Norvalt over us now had to justify ignoring a safer, certified alternative. At 6:09 p.m., Celia forwarded us a screenshot of her message to Greg. Subject line, "We're staying with Rains, and we're doubling our contract." Greg replied in one sentence, "You just made a very expensive mistake." To which she answered, "No, I made an investment. The merger crumbled overnight. By sunrise, Norvalt pulled out." Greg had no backup, no press release, no clients, and one very loud voicemail waiting from Victor Alden. We hadn't just outplayed him. We rewrote the entire damn game. The last time I saw Greg, he wasn't wearing his signature cufflinks. He was sitting alone in a corner booth at the overpriced rooftop bar he used to drag us to for team bonding exercises, drinking a $28 cocktail named after himself that the bartenders renamed the Fall of Greg behind his back. He didn't notice me walk in, but I saw the moment he realized. His shoulders tightened. His glass stopped midair, like he expected me to gloat. I didn't. I just sat down across from him without asking, matched his silence, let him stew in it. Finally, he spoke. "You think you've won?" "No," I said calmly. "You think this was a game?" He sneered. "You burned my house down." I leaned forward. "No, Greg, you poured gasoline on a remote culture, lit a match with your ego, and screamed teamwork while it went up in flames." He looked away, toward the skyline. "You know what the board said after Norvalt dropped us?" "I do." Victor had forwarded the transcript. Words were brutal, unfit, volatile, terminally analog. And the final nail, effective immediately, Gregory Manning is relieved of all executive duties. Greg didn't respond. He just reached into his pocket and slid something across the table. A keycard. His old CEO badge, still active, apparently. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked. He didn't answer, just stood. Shoulders slumped. Legacy limp. "Real employees sit at desks," he mumbled, almost to himself. Then he walked out. I left the card on the table. I didn't need a reminder of the door I broke through. I had windows now, glass ones, high up, with real light. 3 weeks later, Ghost Desk crossed $50 million in contracts. Isabel negotiated a government rollout. Ethan built a new AI tier that predicted team burnout before it happened. We hired Melanie full-time as People Ops Director. Lindsay came aboard as Head of Ethics, because who better to know where the lines are than someone who used to erase them? And me. I moved Ghost Desk headquarters to the building next door. But not for expansion. For the view. From my office window, I can see the old Charles and Hunt building across the street. The name's been ripped off the facade, letters removed one by one like dignity peeled from pride. It's an empty shell now. Some nights, I leave my lights on late. Not out of habit. Not for work. Just in case Greg ever walks past. So he remembers that the woman he tried to erase didn't just survive remote work. She franchised it. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.